welcome to the Friday Night Live Q&A. Glad to have you guys here. So if you guys have never been to these Friday Night Live Q&As, you never know what we're going to discuss with keeping freshwater shrimp, fish, shrimp, plants, whatever, you know. And I've been doing this a long time. As the name states, hardcore hobbyist. I have gone from like the most pristine tanks to the nitty grittiest of nature takes over tanks, which I actually like that myself because I have collectoritis and it helps me keep a lot more that way. Then it makes aquarium keeping just so much easier. Now, some people think that I do know water changes, which for the most part I don't do a whole lot of water changes, but I do still recommend water changes. If you can do them, just don't do them too much. It's like everything in life. You got to have a balance. And when it comes to keeping your tank clean and natural, there's a balance between that. Is it too clean? Is it natural? If you can have both, find that happy median. And the only way to do that is through experience and actually the time that it takes to be in the hobby. And sometimes it doesn't take that long for others, maybe more, because there's a lot to think about with all the information there. But that's why we try to make it as easy for you guys as possible here on this channel and on these Q&As. So I offer myself on Friday nights for you guys to pick my brain and just kind of learn about things within our hobby and what may be going on with your aquariums. But hello everybody in here. Glad to see y'all in here. Let me go ahead and get into live chat. So I haven't had much for videos out this week. I have actually been busy building Wesley's playground. He got a play set, so that was one thing I told him, and we have been working on, was to get that ordered and put up, and he's been waiting for it for a long time. It's finally done. It was like a 2-4-man job. Luckily Lady LRB helped me get parts and stuff, but the sun luckily wasn't too bad here in Florida, because sometimes I could just eat you up. But that's done. That's out of the way. Now we got a 3-day weekend coming up, Labor Day weekend. We were thinking about going for a beach vacation just because we still haven't yet. We've been wanting to do that for like the longest time and still haven't done it. And one day we will. I don't think this Labor Day weekend is the best, but I have 3 days here to catch up with the whole family. It's going to be absolutely awesome. And hopefully that means I'll get some videos out for you guys. So get back into the grind here. Also updated the website. If you guys haven't been on there for quite some time, I've got Julia Cromus on there. Lots of guppies. Probably be the last round of rice fish for a little while until I collect some of the other ones and have to really like figure out how their lines have really been doing before I really offer them. And this is a Q&A, so like until you guys ask me questions, I'll just ramble. But whole point of me being here is for you guys to ask questions. But I guess if you guys don't need questions answered, I guess you know, I think that says a lot for the people that come on here. You know, you guys are pretty much feeling good about your hobby and don't really feel like you're pressed on needing to know this, that, or the other. So I guess that's a good thing. But hello, you guys coming in. Good to see you guys. And let's see, what else has been going on this weekend, or this week? As far as like fish, I know the last video I made for you guys, the ponds, where I showed you guys like those strip ponds that I made out in the back of the barn and how they grow over with like grass and everything. And now I haven't touched that since it's been like almost 2-3 weeks ago since I made that video. I think it was like 2 weeks ago, right before the Fins and Fury. Just in that time alone, it just looks so much more overgrown. I'm half tempted of making a video to where I show what it looks like now, kind of like before, like 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks later, and then clean it up and just see what it looks like. I think that would be a good video. I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys be into that? Because besides that, I've got like this blue gularis video I was working on, and you know the eggs didn't end up being fertile, so it's like anticlimactic. Like I can give out the blue gularis breeding and how they throw eggs and doing all that stuff, but I didn't really get to do the hatching part, which just kind of sucks. And you never know with the aquarium hobby and trying to shoot videos like that, it doesn't always work the way you want it to, unfortunately. And also something got into my barbs. Many of you guys may know I've got that big, huge crate breeding basket that I created for my mascara barbs. And I don't know what happened to it, but one time when I went to go feed it, I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday, the lid was all smashed down like something was in there trying to get in there. Luckily, the barbs are all doing good, and we still have them. But it was really wild to see that basket cage just torn down like that. It was wild. And I've got like these, they're pipes, actual like PEX pipes, about yay long. I would say they're about that much over each edge. So like the top can't go down and it just hangs on. But that was like pried down into the basket. It was really wild. And I want to thank everybody too for the support on the website. You guys are helping keep the lights on here right now. Because it's been kind of rough with the whole Fence and Fury thing, summertime. We've been managing. Christina Morris says, so do you ever fertilize your plants? So I used to fertilize my plants a lot, and it is good to feed your plants. But there's also a balance point to where you'll just start feeding algae. So depending on how mineral rich your water is, really depends on how much and what you should be fertilizing. And you'll kind of, like, a lot of people will do the estimated index, which is my favorite. Because when you're doing the estimated index dosing for fertilizing, that means like you're just estimating it needs this much iron, it needs this much potassium, so on and so forth, phosphate, whatever. And when you do that, and if you know anything about your water ahead of time, like if you got hard water or soft water, because acidic soft water is going to break those minerals down faster. Harder water, those minerals just gather and can bind more and maybe not be as effective. But that estimated EI, you can home better to balance what fertilizer you actually need. And some plants, you just really don't need them. Like the rare stems, yeah, they definitely do a lot better with the fertilizer because they do need that plant food, because a lot of times those plants are they're really fast growers, which means they'll uptake all sorts of nutrients, which is weird because it doesn't like pull certain ones out, like your calcium carbonate and all that out, but like your irons and like your nitrogens and stuff like that, your nitrates, your ammonias, like plants love that stuff. Like some of the those high dollar plant soil, kind of special plant soil like the ADA, a lot of those will have extra urea and ammonia added into them just to grow those plants like crazy. So when it comes to fertilizing, you really need to know your aquarium. And if you don't know your aquarium, just start with a little bit. A little bit will go a long way. And a lot has to do with what plants you have too. So if you got a slow growing plant, you're not going to need as much nutrients. If you got fast growing plants, maybe you will. What does it best for most plants out of anything beyond nutrients though is a water change. If you want to grow plants fast, water changes are your friend. That reoxygenation, that's what they really try to grab, is that atmospheric oxygenation. And that'll grow them like crazy. So a big reason why I don't do a whole lot of water changes is the fact that if I were to do a lot of water changes, my plants would just be way, way out of my control. Like, I've got so many plants right now that just like will try to smash fish along the side of the tanks, and I try not to do that. So by doing less water changes, I actually get less plant growth. Toski says, do you ever add shrimp to a colony to add diversity? Do you worry about diversity in shrimp colonies? So actually I don't, and I've been breeding the same lines of shrimp for 10 years plus. And anytime I would ever mix them, it would muddle up my lines. And I had worked really hard on my lines, so luckily I always back up my line before I'll ever mix anything in it. But I have tried it a couple times back in the day. I haven't done it in a long time. I'm not a fan of doing it, because when you put years in those lines, like, it's hard to replicate it. And the only ones that can really replicate it are the shrimp that are within that colony. You add the genetics to another shrimp from other colonies, then things start getting a little messier as far as like quality. I'm glad to hear that, Nanolithic, about the red llamas. And those actually on the website, glad to hear they're doing great, maturing quickly. Those on the website may be the last ones I have to offer for a while, for a few months. Because, with me breeding everything, quality is limited. Not quality, but quantity is limited. Quality is definitely there. That's the one thing we do work on. But, yeah, the quantity, since I don't buy from other people, it doesn't last long. Kathleen says, what did you put in the indoor pond you cleaned out? The snakefish? So actually, did I not ever make a video on what I don't think I did ever make a video on what I ended up finishing out that pond with. Because there was just so much other stuff just kept popping on, but I need to do that. Actually turn it into a shelly pond. I don't have a snakefish. I ain't keeping no snakefish. I can't have those. Oh, you mean the rope fish, probably? Ooh, I would love to have a pond like that with the rope fish. That would be awesome. I wonder how they would do with shellies. That seems like a really weird combo, but at the same time, they're both African. I don't know. That would be weird. Tarbwire says, I have 6 zebra loaches coming next week. What would be the smallest tank you'd keep them in? Question mark. I'm thinking loach and black Moscow guppy tank. So 6 zebra loaches in a Moscow guppy tank. The only thing that I have, like, the wariness about with that combo is guppies are like really mouthy. They love to touch everything with their mouths. And zebra loaches, from what I've witnessed from them, like, they are one of the chillest kind of loaches. They just like to kind of sit and just graze around slowly. So they might get pestered by guppies. So saying that, you having a bigger tank would be better than trying to go to the smallest tank. And if I went to the smallest tank, I would go at least like a 20 long, if not a 29 gallon. Then have lots of rock work, plants. Some driftwood if you want, but make sure you don't overlight so you get a bunch of algae. Hello, happy Friday, y'all. Rosie says, I have a blind Bolivian ram. I was wondering how you would take care of a blind fish. Really, you gotta let that fish kind of like hone into his own skills at that point, because he's gonna get used to his surroundings. So if this is where a filterless tank would actually be really beneficial to a fish. Because if they don't have like the bubbles, the sound of the filtration, those vibrations from those sort of things, they could have a better feel of their environment. So when you have a filterless tank, it's more of a still environment. So they can feel any vibrations within that water, like really hone into those vibrations and frequencies off of just whatever may move in the water. So having a filterless aquarium would be really good for that sort of fish. And as far as him feeding, if you have a shrimp tank or a lot of shrimp or something like that, maybe add some shrimp into his tank, something that creates more of a natural live ecosystem. Also, if you can get some Daphnia or any kind of live food for him, that would be the best in a filterless situation, because then he would be able to sense, he, she, whatever the fish is, would be able to sense those movements of that live food. Now, he may still be able to smell it out with the regular food. If if he's eating processed food, let me know, because that's actually kind of interesting. Because there is a chance they can still sniff it out either way. But once again, with a no filter tank, you're gonna get that smell or scent off of that food a lot quicker than if you had a filtered tank. Fisk Calderson says, how long would you say it takes to line out a morph from muck guppies? Well, that all really depends, because some lines, they'll just line out like, boom, got super lucky. Pretty much all of them look like the morph. Then sometimes you could sit there and chase a morph and try to line it out and line it out and line it out, and it just give you a lot of troubles. You got some colors that are more dominant when it comes to genetic coding, and some that are less, and those lesser dominant ones are just harder to pull out. It's usually like blues and purples and stuff. Reds and yellows are usually pretty dominant. So depending on what color morphs, it could really depend. So you may get lucky, maybe easy, may not be. Maybe in between. Berserker13F says, how big are those rare rice fish? I think they're only about like yay big so far. But they take forever to like really get to like a massive size. A very slow grower. I have a feeling they live a super long time. But yeah, those are on the website too, those Matano rice fish. Those things were like $50 or something a piece. I don't know what I got them for. Like maybe 15 or something. I don't know. 20 tops maybe. Spinster Sister says, I found some long white waving worms in a detritus jug. Are they safe to feed back to fish? They wave like black worms, move back down quick when disturbed. And it's not a detritus worm? That's probably just a detritus worm. That's what it sounds like. Excuse me. Meatballs and spaghetti tonight. It is delicious. Joey Farrell says, do you care or worry about your pH, GH, KH for different kinds of fish you have? Or you just put whatever fish in your water and that's that? I mean, that pretty much sums it up. I just put whatever fish in my water and that's that. But that's because I have a good idea of what my water is. Now, if you know what your water is, it plays a different story, because even though most fish out there, soft water, hard water, I've pretty much kept them all in all scenarios. It's just certain fish, if they're used to being in soft water especially, it is a little harder for them to go to hard water, but it's mostly due to their immunity instead of hardness. Because what happens is in harder water, there's a lot more bacteria, funguses, and like more negative types of microbiology that could be potentially harmful to your fish, and that will drop their immunity. Their immunity is not used to that, and they get attached to whatever that parasite, ick, or whatever it may be. and it could pose more problems. Now, if you go the other way with hard water fish down to softer, it's not usually much of a issue. Like I've seen so many people keep a lot of fish in just dang near rainwater that you'd just be like, oh, how's that even possible? But it is always good to try to veer off to what would be best for that fish. Now, as far as pH, I don't measure it. It's an absolute goose chase. It'll read per hydrogen. It's very misleading. You're better off with a TDS meter to know your hardness, whether it's hard or soft water. And then GH, KH is good to know because that just gives you an idea of what kind of hardness and carbonates you are getting out of your water. Because a lot of plants love the GH. They don't like the KH so much. KH is like the devil in planet aquariums. Fish, great for fish. KH and fish, absolutely, they love it. But with planet tanks, not so much. That's why you see a lot of like hardcore planet tanks that don't have a whole lot of fish or like older fish in it. That and the gas and the CO2 stuff will mess with them too. But yeah, I don't really mess with the pH. And the GHKH, like I know it's in there. I don't know where it's at, but I know it's in there. Sorry, yeah, ropefish. The hormones from the shellies might make the ropefish breed. Maybe. The only thing would be predation would be absolutely insane. So I think they would predate on each other. Because the ropefish have big enough mouths to eat any baby or young shellies. And then the shellies have big enough mouths to eat any young ropefish. What I need to do, I have another plan with those ropefish, and I need to get a tank here in the house so I can get it set up for just them. I got another plan at some point. But that's a good idea with getting them to trigger breeding. You know, it probably wouldn't hurt. It's just gathering the babies. That's the hardest part. Toski says, have you ever raised tadpoles? Yes, I used to all the time as a kid, whether they be like catfish tadpoles or frog tadpoles. Deb Hall D says, are rummy nose rasboras okay to be in with chili rasboras? 12 liter and a planet 20 long. Yeah, definitely. 10 of them. They get along fine. Rummy nose rasboras are pretty chill fish. Nanolithic says, I have some type of bryozoan or polyp in one of my outdoor pond tub systems. It's clearish white with little spheres on the end of the tentacles. Any thoughts of or types to rid it? Any thoughts, types to rid it? As far as like bryozoan and polyps, there is this stuff called ruby reef, rally, and kick ick that get rid of all that stuff. There's nothing that stuff can't get rid of, and it's really plant, shrimp, and fish safe. That would be the only thing I could recommend for that. Aquarium Fantasy says, Lucas, will you be doing a member live stream again? I will. I definitely will at some point. I need to. Maybe I should have live streamed with you guys while I was building the swing set. I kind of need my focus because I was doing like 2-man job on a few of those things. But yeah, I definitely need to. Maybe I'll try to do that this weekend at some point. Maybe we'll do it in the backyard and who knows, go on a walkabout. Of course, we can't go in the barn because stupid internet in there. Whatever happened to that landline, Sarah? You ever hear anything? Huh? The landline for the internet? Fiber. The fiber, whatever?
Yeah, it's still supposed to be sometime.
Rosie says, I moved him out of my 90-gallon, put him in a tank by himself with a sponge filter. I practically hand feed him live food, blackworms, live brine shrimp. So that is going back to that blind ram. Yeah, blackworms would be good. Live brine shrimp would be good. The only issue with the brine shrimp is if he doesn't eat them all, it can foul the water, because they'll end up dying and decomposing in there, and that could cause more problems than it's worth. So it's better to get something that could live in that ecosystem. So instead of brine shrimp, Daphnia would be a much better choice. Mosquito larva is good too if you can get it, even though you probably doesn't want that in your house so much. But that's pretty crazy. You have to hand feed them live food. But yeah, turn that sponge filter off. The fish will be fine without the sponge filter, and especially if he's by himself, you know. Then he won't have any of that like other flutter around him. He can really hone into his environment. Matt Flash says, do gold killifish have off-colored fry? I have some that are grayish brown. I don't know, because personally have never bred the gold killifish myself. Or at least as far as like the Golden Wonder, they may not be all as gold as the others. So I guess a lot depends on your lineage, where you got them from. And now like the Gardnerites, I don't know. Maybe they have some kind of recessive genes that do fall back off of that. Because I know like the Golden Wonder killifish, like in nature, what that fish really looks nothing like what the Golden Wonder looks like. Because it's actually bred out to look like that. It's a mutation of a fish. And I think they did it in Germany a while back. So sometimes they won't be as bright as others. There's like a few different types of golden types of killies there. Glad you're loving those koi guppies, Jupiter 1. That line is probably the best line of koi guppies that I have ever seen. Because usually they're a real pain in the butt to like keep messing with. Because after a while they'll like kind of go solid out on certain things. But that line has been really nice. Probably the best one I've ever seen. JP Jeffries says, I just got a school of medium-sized teardrop barbs from Dan's in a 75. I'm guessing those are the Rohani. Says they dart around like bullets, possibly injuring themselves. What can I do to get them comfortable with me? Thanks. So yeah, they sounds like they are skittish. So if you walk by them, just be mindful walking by them. Like go slowly. Give them a safe space that they can go in. Like that's why I keep mine with the guppy grass, because they can go hide in the guppy grass, and then they can go eat and hide. If they wanted to eat, they could at least eat the guppy grass too. But the biggest thing is especially shadows. Watch your shadows. So if you're over the top of them and like moving your arm, that can definitely get them like darting off like bullets. They're really fast fish. So when they do take off, they really freaking take off. And oh my goodness, what do we got here? Rosie, thank you so much for that super chat. Thank you. Much appreciated. And very helpful right now. And best of luck with the fish. Sounds like you're on the right track though. For sure. Dartwire says, ever tried mixing black Moscow with blue neon guppies, hoping for black with blue highlights? So they do have like, I have seen that, and sometimes they'll come out of the black Moscow lines. They will get this like blueness to like their body. Not so much like their, it's more like in the stomach and behind the ear kind of area. Can't remember what they call those, like a black tuxedo Moscow or something like that. But yeah, I've seen it like reversed, not so much out of the blue neons. Berserker 13F, how much is shipping? Spring Hill, Florida. So we got a flat rate of 10. Starts at $10. Unfortunately, it doesn't go by like each area, which sometimes sucks for me because out west, some of those packages get up to like $13 for me. Which they have raised the shipping prices, which I've been trying to stay pretty low on shipping. I don't think there's many fish places that can beat my shipping costs, because even after $100, it's free. But yeah, they've been raising shipping. I might have to starting at 12 here after a while. I try to keep my prices as low as possible for you guys. And I know since like quantity's even limited, it's kind of a silly move to make as like a business person if I'm really trying to profit a lot. But I don't know. I try to keep my overhead low. That way I could pass that kind of stuff off to you guys, because I know how hard it is to not have like a bunch of money and want to be in this hobby. So I try to keep it affordable for those people, and really for anybody who wants it. Fish streams, we don't do a whole lot of inflation here. Let me put it that way. Like my price has pretty much been the same since I've started this, dang near 10 years ago. Fish Dream says, would it be a bad idea to acclimate a bristlenose to live in Tanganyika conditions? Not at all. No, bristlenose do just fine in Tanganyika conditions. Matter of fact, I'm keeping my Tanganyikans and breeding them out in 180 TDS water, which, you know, that's kind of acidic for Tanganyikans, but they're doing all right because there's still minerals in the water. Night Owl Aquatic says, ever bred chili rasboras? I have not, but they have been on my bucket list, and I would love to at some point. I just never got to it. There's still quite a bit of fish like that, but I can imagine they breed a lot like the CPDs do. Celestial Pearl Daniel. Fish Out of Water says, hey Lucas, do you think I could keep rads in the same tank as Ember Tetras, or will the Tetras become tasty snacks for the rads? Tetras are pretty quick, and depending on the size of the Ember Tetras, because sometimes I've seen them at stores, they come in pretty small. There is a chance. So if they got enough size to them, they'll be all right against the rads. But it is a fine line. It would be a fine line because those rads have pretty decent mouths. If it's like a full-on size rad versus a really younger Ember Tetra, it could be a gamble. But besides that, I think it would be all right, especially if enough space. Rads are pretty fast. Darbwire says, check out internet over power line. A cheap solution if your barn and house shares the same wire as power source. Not a question. That's interesting. You can do that, internet over power line. Can you Google that, Lady LRB?
What was it?
Internet over power line.
Okay.
Just look into that, and then we'll talk about it later. Please and thank you. Toski says, are tetracolored tropical granules okay for tadpoles? Yeah, I don't see why not. Pretty much anything will eat those. Wolf Toe says, how do you feel about hybrids? I'm not a big fan of them in certain things, but like guppies, of course, like that's going to happen. Shrimp, that's going to happen. Rainbow fish, definitely not. Catfish, stuff like that. I don't know why they're messing with them so much. Definitely not barbs, and I think there's enough with like, it's because people are just like, they chase money so bad, it's terrible. That they try to create all these like crazy hybrids that just should not exist. Like there's so many beautiful fish out there that you don't need to be hybridizing as much. And there's enough types of fish that we have that, you know, is enough to play around with. So I've got mixed feelings. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. I guess it depends on what it is. But I was at a place in New York that they had these catfish that they actually freaking hybridized between a shark and a catfish, and they did it all in a lab. Like, this thing should not even exist at all. Like, totally playing God. It was crazy. It's one thing to take a mutation from a fish and line it out, because that's kind of cool, because it is a natural mutation. But another thing to like start splitting and crossing genes to create like weird stuff. But Monica WG, thank you so much for that $5 super chat. I really, really appreciate it. It says, hello, Lucas. Which fish, if any, wouldn't deter German blues from breeding? Thank you. Channel is fire. Well, Monica, always good to see you in here, and thank you so much for that. Ones that wouldn't deter German blues. Honestly, I think like maybe a bluefin like killifish, a bluefin killifish. They're real peaceful, calm, kind of stay within their space and don't try to invade other spaces. I think that would actually be a pretty good dither fish for them too, to kind of get them in the mood and make them feel like, oh, the space is safe to have babies. That would be my go-to, because I think they would not be able to get eaten by the German blues. They would be smart enough to get away. White cloud might be too rambunctious. Tetras, they may either get eaten or bitten on. Like chili rasboras, yeah, I don't think they'd be able to hang. Amber tetras might not be a bad choice. Kobadai rasbora might not be bad. You like those smaller tetras, ones that aren't rambunctious. Just fish that like to keep to their space. You could do it. I think, there it is, okay. Thought I lost the chat there for a little bit. But thank you again for that. Support is definitely helpful. Have you seen Synodontis hybrids, bioaquatics breeds, the pandas? So a lot of that's probably like, there's a lot of different Synodontis. Who knows how many of those haven't even been hybridized to begin with? And, you know, I've seen it where you can get more of the white out of them, more of the black out of them. I've done it myself just through the morphs of the types of fish. But I haven't seen the ones Bioaquatics has done. Sounds interesting, though. Fish Stream says, what are the little bugs that hop around on the top of the water? They're in my sump where baby fish went down their weir, and the weir is like the overflow. It says, I want to seal off the tank. So those are more than likely like springtails. They're nothing to worry about. Fish will eat them. Aquarium Fantasy says, are you doing anything new in the fish room? I have 275s still sitting out in front of the barn. I was planning on switching out and getting this wall done and doing all this stuff, and then I got into that crazy boxing match. And a lot of that got put to the wayside. So this weekend it will actually be me getting my feet back into like my actual grind. Start looking at my notes from way back when, and just looking at things like, okay, what am I gonna do now? Because that's kind of how my life rolls. I'm going in on side quest, and time to get back to the main mission here. So we'll see. There's definitely a lot of things to be doing in the barn, that's for sure. A lot. Scroll. Dean Stevenson says, so do killifish only live a year? I see they are annual and semi-annual. So like your Nothiobranchius, like those will last about a year, but your Fundulopanchax, your Amphicemians, your Rivuluses, a lot of those types will live longer than a year. The Epilotes, I had one that lived for like dang near 7 to 8 years. It was a Lamontii, oldest living killifish I had. Thing was crazy. Carla M says, I put a bunch of scuds in my community tank today. Will they likely swim above the gravel or more likely to hide in it? I'm hoping my one bumblebee goby gets most of them. So the bumblebee goby, has a good chance of getting them because they do like to, they feel like there's predation in the tank. They like to like hunker down into the substrate or whatever gravel. So a bumblebee goby's got the patience to kind of sit and wait it out if they like hear something or feel a vibration of them. Which, Rosie, that would be another good one for your ram, would be the scuds. You're still in here listening. Dino Sauce says, hey, I just got home. Glad I can make it. How long you got the stream left in you? We got about 15 minutes here, even though I'm already feeling ice cream. I was feeling ice cream before this. Lady LRB's like, nope, not yet, for some reason. I don't know why. She denied me my ice cream. Hopefully I get it after this. Tease. La Deanna White, good to see you in here. Says, Lucas, when going filterless and no air stone, I remember you saying to not have a tight lid on the tank. I have a glass lid, but does have gaps. Still good, or should I remove completely? I personally would remove it, just because you get a lot more atmospheric exchange. That's really the biggest kicker on that. That is the biggest kicker, period. Matt Flash says, what was your favorite part of going to New York? Thanks. So the thing about going to New York, it was a rough hellscape for me because I was actually fighting a fever from sun poisoning because I had mowed the yard for too long and absorbed too much sun. It was messing me up. And I also had a bruised rib. And also took a spring mattress to try to sleep it off on the way to New York. And with the way the roads were and that spring mattress, if I had like a cushion mattress, it probably would have went a whole lot better. But with that spring mattress and dealing with all that stuff, it was just like, God, I can't get comfortable. I can't sleep. It actually ended up messing my neck up to where I couldn't like turn it back and forth just because I had no like sleep, and it was just re-triggering this spot. I got a concussion, and so that part was rough because I was just bouncing in the air from it. And then I got to the hotel, and it was more like, all right, just kind of gotta like simmer down, and I don't know, it was more of a lot to do. And then eating out was really weird for me because I'm used to home cooking. Like, I know my food. Like, when it comes to, like, what you should really think about is, like, what you actually eat, because it goes a long way. And I know some people don't want to hear that, but it's so true. So that was a bit hard for me, too. But then it was when we got to the event. I would say that was my favorite part of it was the event, and then hanging out after the party and after the after party. And that was all my favorite part. Besides that, it was all kind of survival struggle mode. Yeah, I didn't get to do a ferry boat in New York or nothing. I did get to have a Long Island in Long Island, so got to scratch that off my bucket list. Dino Sauces found some Luminatus at my LFS for only $4 a piece. 'Twas my last addition to the 20-gallon. Got 3 vampire shrimp, yellow back caradinas, 3 peacock gudgeons, 10 coolies, 7 autocinclus, and now 12 Luminatus. Sounds like a wild tank to look at. Those are my favorite kind of tanks, you know, just full hosh posh. QnA, what's up? Dana Ken Aquatics says, what's up, man? Member for 60 months. 60 months. God, that's a long time. That's like 5 years almost. My man. We gotta talk on the phone at some point. I need to catch up with you. Wolfto says, what link Tanganyika CA would you recommend the highest to go with the Petricola? Well, if you want any of them to breed, you definitely want to keep them separate. If you don't care about breeding, then you could, I would say the Julia Chromis would be alright. Probably. I don't know, some of them can be real moody to anything that's just not part of their partnership. Even with themselves. They can be relentless too. So I don't know, that's kind of a gamble. I might have to sit out on that question. If anybody else has recommendations for wolf toe, I'll look out for it, because yeah, I don't know. I've always kept any like Tanganicans types. I try to keep them species only. Now I know with like certain ones you can if you have enough space, but if you're trying to get any numbers out of them, no way. And John's Creatures, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, John. Always good to see you in here, my brother. Says, happy Friday, Lucas, and everybody on chat. Question, do you feed your outside fish or let them Mother Nature feed? So I do actually supplement it with the tropical granules. They do get quite a bit of live food, but they're always hungry for those granules. So I definitely do feed them. I usually go around whenever I feed everything else. But John's Creatures, great to see you in here, buddy. Thank you, thank you. That way too, like if I moved them into the barn, like they would already know what to eat. Because if I was just letting them eat what Mother Nature provided, whenever I moved them in or gave them to other people, it would probably be hard to actually get them transitioned over to processed food. Trying to speed read a bunch here. Oh, I am at the bottom of the chat. I made it. Dino Sauce says, which live food is most superior in your opinion, best to culture, and most universal? Best for food and health-wise for fish, I would probably go with either mosquitoes or blackworms. But those aren't the easiest to culture. Mosquitoes can sometimes be. The easiest to culture is really, really tough because they all kind of have their own struggles with like differences that you got to do. So like blackworms, for instance, they don't breed real fast. Now they can multiply by division, like say if they get chopped up or something, by segmentation, which is why they do culture really well in a shrimp tank, kind of like planaria does. And like shrimp or scuds do really well. I would say scuds probably are the easiest. It's just if you're selling plants and stuff like that, you don't really want them in your tank. So I don't really keep them much. But as far as like culturing and keeping alive, I would say scuds probably would be the best one. Now I think about it more. Over Daphnia. Daphnia is great and all, but it could be a real pain to culture out and keep them with green water and keep that stuff going. Scuds, they don't need much but like fish food to eat on, or just dead decaying plants or even algae or something. And you know, I would say Daphnia is probably the most universal, especially for triggering fish to breed. Deanna White says, Lucas, what's your favorite flavor ice cream? It's hard to pick a favorite flavor because I love all the flavors out there. And I mean all the flavors. But usually at home, I'm eating the vanilla with chocolate and then peanuts. And we got some whipped cream, that's good too. Oh, and some strawberry jam on it. Then you can get like the pear jam on it with like graham cracker crumbles. Stuff's fire too. Black cherry, that's good. This chocolate's good. Neapolitan's good. Hard to go wrong with ice cream, really. Alex's Crazy Aquatic Adventures says, do you still add fertilizers to your planted tanks? I've been trying to experiment growing plants off just fish food waste, leaf litter, but it's been a struggle, haha, even in my dirted tanks. So a lot has to do with like some plants really don't need the fertilization. A lot has to do with your water. We talked about all this towards the beginning of the live stream, so I don't really want to repeat it all. I would recommend just watching this over. And it was like one of the first questions where I went on the whole spill about knowing your water, knowing your plants, what you fertilize. Like I haven't fertilized anything in my fish room for almost 2 years now, at least. Tanner Sauce says, maybe I got scuds. I have a microscope, but I don't know what I'm looking for as a reference. So scuds are big enough. You'd be able to tell what they look like without a microscope. Snickers would be good. Try to steer away from like brand name things like that, just because unfortunately here in America, the things they allow on our food anymore is a little bonkers. Matt Flash says favorite home cooked meal is a steak and spaghetti and tacos. And usually that's the usual favorites. Ice cream or crab legs too. Sunday night. Crab legs. We're eating good over here. They say health is wealth, so you gotta mind what you eat. John's Creature's second and last question. How's your mollies, yellowtails doing? Any available yet? So I've got a lot of them within that pond. The only thing with them is I do not know how well they're breeding out. So I would say here probably in about a month. Or maybe even I'll do a little bit sooner because I do got to go back there and clean things out and probably will make a video about it. But hopefully they are all looking good, because the guy told me they should breed out pretty true. And I know a lot of people are waiting on those. Nice checks fish. Fish. And you know, even though I don't have filters, like, I don't have a problem with filters, but I do also think about the fish and like the vibrations and frequencies. And if I was a fish and there was always that humming and stuff, I don't know, it would drive me crazy. I absolutely love the sound of my fish room. I absolutely love it. Compared to any other fish room, like, it's night and day. Like, there's no comparison. Wolf Toe says, would you recommend one over another between Burchardi and Cuddle Punctatus? So the Burchardis are going to be a lot more aggressive than your Cuddle Punctatus. I'll tell you that much. Those Burchardis can be brutal. Cuddle Punctatus, they're pretty mellow. They're more like Shelly speed, maybe a little slower. Ninos says, any recommendations for trace minerals? I reconstitute RODI for all my water, but I can't buy trace in bulk like the macros. Nilo CG is where I used to get my fertilizers, and you can buy the trace in bulk, which that'll have like all your iron, copper, things like that. And having the RODI, do you add any GH and KH back into it? Because you'll want to reconstitute some of that. Now, depending on if you're going more for a planted tank, you want to do less KH. But if you're going more for like a fish tank, you can do more KH. Because the thing with plants, and especially the harder stems, is that KH, that bicarbonate, will create this like shield over the plant's natural kind of biofilm or skin per se. And then that's where it actually causes problems with the plants. Certain plants. Some plants love KH. Some plants will absolutely eat it up. But those harder stems and harder to keep plants, like when we talk about plants, like, there's a lot of common plants out there. Many plants, let me say, that you'll get from like Petco and stuff, they don't even belong in your fish tanks. But then there's like AGA plants, which is like your Aquarium Gardener Association type of plants, where if you were into aquarium plants and didn't know about that group or club, highly recommend checking them out, because you'll come across a plethora of plants that you had no clue about and that you'll just drool over. And they're not hard to keep. It just takes certain setups to keep them. But then there's like Vallisneria, Java fern, guppy grass, pearlweed, a lot of the plants like I keep, that like you could throw these things in pretty much any water and not really have to mess with them. Crypts. But then you get into like some Rotalas aren't bad, some Luigias, Agrophilias, but some of them are tougher than others. Then you get into like cardinal plants like Lobelias and stuff like that. And Toninia type of plants, which are a lot more sensitive to hardnesses and stuff. So there's such a wide range of aquarium plants. Keep that in mind. Fischella says, keeping killifish in the filterless tank, no cover tank. How low you have to keep the water levels so they do not jump out? So, you know, it really depends on the size of the killifish, but say average killifish about yay big. Got a 10-gallon tank. I'm gonna go probably about that far off. So you don't want to hold a lot of substrate in with them. And if you're just trying to breed, just dust, like maybe some sand or something on the bottom. That way they just don't see the reflection, because that can mess with their breeding. And then hit them with the spawning mop. But if you can't get like a mesh or any kind of lid that's aired out, there's a lot of mesh or screened lids that you can use for the no filters that still let the tank breathe, and you don't have to worry about the fish jumping as much. Because although I do it, it's a fine line of like knowing what you can do and can't do in that situation. So just be careful. Tanya H, yeah, that all sounds good, Tanya. You can come over and eat with us anytime. Well, you're welcome, Matt. Appreciate you being here, and for the member support. All you members, like, gotta love you guys. You guys are the best. Because you guys really make a lot of this still continue. Keeping me out of that 9 to 5 for now. Even though if I did go back to the 9 to 5, I was looking at this masonry school. Like, I always kind of wanted to do that. But that's not what I really want to do. Like, I still want to mess with fish, but I'm just saying, you can make some big money doing that stuff too. And down here in Florida, doing cement blocks, all the things I could build. Dino says, Sauce says, any without copper. You don't see it often where you'll see the trace minerals without the copper. But I've dosed copper and trace minerals in with my shrimp and all kinds of tanks, and it never be a problem. I know back in the day, people used to be like, oh no, you can't put no copper in with no shrimp, or sellers were blaming copper pipes for reasons why people's shrimp weren't living. Like, these sellers used to blame everything besides their shrimp for the deaths of these shrimp, and it got a little out of hand, and a lot of that knowledge got passed down, and a lot of people think that, you know, certain things do certain things to certain things with that. And I'll tell you right now, the copper, I have never had an issue with trace copper elements within fertilization. I used to do it on a regimen all the time for years. All right, and Carla M, thank you for becoming a member. Welcome to the bronze. I thought you were a member, Carla. But either way, welcome, and thank you. And all right, what's for dinner? It was spaghetti and meatballs today. Usually a steak. Lady LRB is getting tired of cooking them for me, because I was having to eat double dinners when I was training for boxing. Just to keep the weight up, I would have to eat like spaghetti and meatballs and the steak plus sides. So it was a bit of cooking for her, and thank God for her for feeding me, because I'd starve without her. And on that note, it got me thinking about ice cream, and we're well over the hour mark here. But I appreciate you guys all hanging out with me. Kitty's making her way. And I hope you guys have a great weekend, and a Labor Day weekend at that. So enjoy the time. Hopefully you guys get some time, hang out with your loved ones, and appreciate the time that you have, because it's not always guaranteed. So enjoy it while you got it. So until next time, everybody, peace. Have a great one. Do 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 do.